We perceive reality as a continuous stream, a relentless flow from the past through the present and into the future. But this sensation is a neurological fabrication. In 1915, Albert Einstein dismantled the concept of a universal now with general relativity, suggesting instead that time is a coordinate, much like latitude or longitude. The universe does not happen. It simply exists as a static four-dimensional block. So the question isn't what time is it, but rather where are you located within the block? And theoretically, is it possible to step off the grid entirely? To understand falling out of time, we must first recognize that you are already living in the past. Neuroscientific data confirms that the human brain requires approximately 80 milliseconds to process sensory input and assemble it into a coherent picture of reality. This is the specious present. You are perpetually lagging behind the actual event horizon of the universe. If a glitch were to occur, a momentary lapse in synaptic processing known as chronostasis, you wouldn't witness a break in the timeline. You would simply cease to exist for that duration and resume without memory of the gap. But physics offers a more terrifying possibility than mere biological lag. In classic Newtonian mechanics, time was absolute, a master clock ticking universally for all observers. Einstein destroyed this with the equivalence principle. He proved that gravity is not a force, but a curvature of spacetime. The stronger the gravity, the slower time moves relative to a distant observer. This isn't theoretical. In 1971, the Hafele-Keating experiment flew cesium atomic clocks around the world and proved they desynchronized from ground-based clocks by mere nanoseconds. But if you take this principle to its extreme limit, the math begins to break down into something unrecognizable. Enter the Schwarzschild radius. The event horizon of a black hole represents the ultimate point of no return. Here, the gravitational well is so steep that the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light. But something far stranger happens to the geometry of existence. As you cross the horizon, the coordinates of space and time effectively switch roles. In our universe, you have freedom of movement in space, but you are forcibly dragged forward in time. Inside a black hole, you theoretically gain freedom of movement in time, but are forcibly dragged forward in space toward the singularity. This coordinate interchange implies that once inside, the singularity is not a place you can avoid. It becomes a future moment in time. You cannot avoid the singularity any more than you can avoid next Tuesday. In this scenario, falling out of the timeline means falling out of the causal structure of the universe we know. You enter a region where the future is spatially located at the center, and the past is the universe outside the whole. However, general relativity is classical. It doesn't account for the granular nature of the quantum realm.
To truly exit the timeline, we must look at quantum mechanics, specifically the Wheeler's delayed choice experiment, proposed by John Archibald Wheeler in 1978. This experiment suggests that a decision made in the present can determine the state of a particle in the past. When a photon passes through a double-slit apparatus, it exists as a wave of probabilities. If we choose to measure which path it took after it has passed the slits, the particle seems to retroactively decide it acted as a particle all along. This hints at retrocausality, the future influencing the past.
If the past, present, and future exist simultaneously in a block universe, then falling out might mean traversing a closed Timelike curve, CTC. Discovered in the Math of General Relativity by Gödel in 1949, a CTC is a world line that circles back on itself. If you were to enter one, you wouldn't fall out of time, you would become trapped in a causal loop, eternally repeating the same sequence of events. This solves the grandfather paradox by eliminating free will. You repeat the loop because you always have and always will. However, the greatest barrier to leaving the timeline is the second law of thermodynamics. The arrow of time is defined by entropy, the tendency of systems to move from order to disorder. For you to fall out or move backward, you would need to decrease the entropy of the universe, a violation of fundamental physical law. Stephen Hawking argued that this alignment of thermodynamic time and psychological time is the reason we remember the past but not the future. To exist outside this flow is to exist in a state of thermal equilibrium, essentially heat death.
There is a psychological counterpart to this physical isolation, chronophobia, or the prisoner's dilemma of time perception. In deep isolation experiments, without external zeitgebers, light cues, clocks, or social interaction, human circadian rhythms drift. Subjects in caves have perceived 48 hours as 20. If you were to truly fall out of the timeline, to exist in a void with no entropy and no events, time would technically cease to have meaning for you. As physicist Julian Barber suggests, if nothing changes, time does not exist.
Finally, we consider the many worlds interpretation, proposed by Hugh Everett III in 1957. Every quantum event causes the universe to branch. In this framework, you are constantly falling out of one timeline and into another. There is no single history. If you experience a glitch or a near-death experience, quantum immortality suggests your consciousness simply continues along the branch where you survived. You haven't fallen out of time. You've simply been filtered into a timeline that sustains your observation. So what happens if you fall out of the timeline? According to current physics, you either undergo spaghettification at a singularity, become trapped in a closed causal loop, or drift into a high entropy state of non-existence. We are shackled to the timeline not just by gravity, but by the very definition of consciousness. We are not observers watching time flow. We are the flow itself. Time is the medium in which we burn. To step outside of it is to extinguish the flame. In the end, the timeline isn't a prison. It's the only place where we can truly exist.